My goal was to work on movies. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to work with actors. So I had to turn down videotape jobs so that I could rebrand myself. This led to 3-4 months of unemployment, and I was getting rather desperate. I had my first child due that year, and one afternoon an acquaintance called who was an assistant director. She said, "We're desperate here on this television show I'm working on down the street. We had a helicopter camera operator all lined up, and he flaked on us. You do helicopter, right?" And at this point, I was so desperate, I said, "Sure."
When you recognize that someone, or they tell you that they have the problem, I care too much about what other people think. That's,
yeah.
I'm guilty of that.
No, you're very sensitive, empathetic. Again, it comes back to, do you base your value as a human being on how they're reacting? If I invest my self-worth in how people are reacting to me, I may get everybody on my side today, but tomorrow somebody's going to change their mind. And if my sense of self and my self-worth is tied to that, then I'm riding the tail of a tiger.
What role does authenticity and vulnerability play in being successful?
Well, authenticity and vulnerability are go together. To be vulnerable is to show the world who you are, who you really are. When we do that, is the possibility that my deepest wounds might be triggered. And so it takes great courage to be vulnerable. And I believe that people respond to that level of courage, whether they quite realize it or not.
Welcome to the ElectrifiedMind.com podcast, your direct access to the top life coaches, inspirational and motivational leaders of our world. Be prepared to eradicate your doubts, fears, and toxic energy as we electrify your mind for success at ElectrifiedMind.com.
Welcome to the ElectrifiedMind.com podcast. I am your host, Philip Isaac. On today's show, we have a certified life and leadership coach who works with successful, creative individuals who want to enhance the quality of their life and work. For over 30 years, our guest today has been one of the most successful and respected cinematographers in Hollywood. He has had the pleasure of collaborating with many of the industry's greatest directors, among them Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, Peter Weir, and James Cameron, on films such as Always, The Rainmaker, Fearless, and Terminator 2. Known for both his camera skill and the ability to connect with cast and crew, in 2012, he received the highest possible honor for his work, the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Society of Camera Operators. Our guest today holds a Bachelor of Arts and a Master's in Fine Arts in Cinema from the University of Southern California, as well as a Master's in Spiritual Psychology, and earned his certification as a soul-centered professional coach from the University of Santa Monica. We are privileged to have as a guest on our show today, Paul Babin. Paul, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here.
And we're so grateful you're here, sir. Let's talk about pursuing your meaning and purpose in life. As rewarding as being associated with all the incredible films that we're going to be talking about and TV series that you've been associated with, your meaning and purpose is helping other people and empowering others. And I'd like to talk to you about this aspect of your life. Let's talk about spiritual psychology, which you have a master's degree in, which I mentioned in your introduction. Mm-hmm. What is spiritual psychology, Paul, and how do you use it to serve others?
Spiritual psychology is the brainchild of a couple of PhD psychologists who one day wondered why the prefix psyche is in the word psychology, which means spirit or breath. And yet there is nothing about spirit in the 20th century definition of psychology, which is the science of the mind. They were suspect that something got lost in the translation somewhere along the line. And they began to step back and look at the bigger picture. And ultimately, this resulted in spiritual psychology, which is a blending of a couple of traditional spiritual traditions and psychology.
Awesome. Let's talk about meditation. Mm-hmm. You have a YouTube channel where you post meditation videos. And you're
among others, yeah.
Of course, you got lots going on. And you have a nice following too. What is manifestation, Paul? And how does meditation increase our manifestation abilities?
Meditation for me is a process of connecting with what's real, because I, as I think most people, have a stream of thoughts, which I call monkey mind, which a lot of people call monkey mind, that tends to confuse and distract me. And so meditation is a chance to slow down and observe my thoughts, and to do so from a vantage point that's a little more all-knowing, consistently more rational. So meditation is a chance to sort of start my day from a place of clarity. And then on the spiritual level, it's an opportunity for me to connect with my concept of God or higher power or the universe, and to once again remind that source of energy that I'm available to do the work that I'm supposed to do. And I'd appreciate it if you could speak loudly today to get through the noise. So that's basically what meditation is for me.
I love that. And you said start your day. Is that something, do you meditate every day?
No, I try to. I probably bat about 80%.
Your career in Hollywood is something that we could talk about for hours. I'd like you to share the story with us about how you got your start in that line of work. You posted an article on your incredible blog, which we're going to be telling everyone how they can visit a little bit later in the show. But it was about the beginning of your career in Hollywood. You posted this blog titled, "You Do Helicopter, Right?"
Yeah. Yes.
Would you share that story with us?
Be glad to. This was actually a couple of years into my career, where I had gone through the phase of being a camera assistant, and then I became a camera operator. But I became a camera operator on video shows, which tended to be a lot less creative for the camera operators. My goal was to work on movies. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to work with actors. So I had to make the decision to turn down videotape jobs so that I could rebrand myself, if you will. This led to 3-4 months of unemployment, and I was getting rather desperate. I had my first child due that year, and one afternoon an acquaintance called who was an assistant director. She said, "We're desperate here on this television show I'm working on down the street." It was close by that she called from. She said, "We had a helicopter camera operator all lined up, and he flaked on us. You do helicopter, right?" And at this point, I was so desperate, I said, "Sure." She said, "Good, get in your car, come down here, meet the director of photography, and then we'll take you to the Santa Monica airport, and you'll get on the helicopter." So I got in my car as the perspiration began to form on my brow, met the director of photography on the set of on the location set of the TV show. He scrutinized me. He'd never heard of me, much less seen me. And the first question he asked me was, "Do you prefer the major mount or the middle mount?" And I thought, major mount, middle mount, bigger is better. I prefer the major mount, I said. He said, "Good, that's what I got you." Good, passed that test. He described the shots that they wanted, which would be going out over the ocean and filming a speedboat. He said he would be in radio communication with me, giving me f-stops, patted me on the back, said, "Good luck." I was escorted to a van, taken to the airport. There was the helicopter. There was an assistant, a camera assistant, setting up the camera. I walked over. It was just me and the assistant, and this became my moment of confession that this was going to be a new experience for me. He kind of perked up at that moment. He thought this was rather exciting. And he became a kind of counselor in that moment. He said, "It'll be fine." He said, "First of all, you've got one of the best pilots in the business, and that's 90% of it." He said, "Here, sit down." And he strapped me in, my legs dangling out the side. He took my hands and placed them on the major mount, which was the armature holding the camera. And he showed me how to adjust the zoom lens and how to set the focus. And he patted me on the back and he said, "You'll be great." So cut to the next morning, and I get a call from the director of photography. congratulating me for the superior quality of my work. He said that the studio was ecstatic, and he invited me to come out to work with the main unit that day, which I did. I joined them, operated a second camera. We went back to Universal Studios to do more work on stage. The head of the camera department came down to meet me, asked me if I was available to jump on an airplane in the morning and join a movie being shot down in Arizona. They needed helicopter shots, which I did. I wound up shooting second unit, working with the stunt coordinator, had a great time. And my career just took off from there. It was a major foot in the door and a life lesson about the value of taking risks sometimes.
I love that. It seemed on the surface to be a story of being in the right place at the right time, but there's more to it than that. You held out for that moment. You're going through, your wife is pregnant and you hadn't been working and didn't have money and you didn't want to take another job that wasn't the direction you were going, and you held out and you believed in yourself and you didn't sell yourself short. And that's what I got out of that story.
And it's a fine line to walk, isn't it? Sometimes. And see, getting back to meditating, this is where I wasn't meditating at the time, by the way, but had I been, I think one of the things that meditation allows me to do is to be more discerning. When the monkey mind is going, it tends to be filled with judgments. And judgments are very dramatic, and they're very hot or cold. And meditation helps bring the clarity so that I can be discerning. I can make choices, regarding what's working for me and what isn't.
You've been a part of so many incredible movies and TV series. I couldn't possibly name them all, but I'd like to name a few. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, True Lies, Toys, The Bridge, Kong, The Abyss, Iron Man 3, X-Men, First Class, CSI Miami, The Soloist, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Valkyrie, 90210, Memoirs of a Geisha, Halloween 4, it's in so many more. It's an awesome, absolutely incredible career. Let me ask you this. Is there a particular movie that you've been involved with that stands out to you, besides working on the set with Garry Marshall, which I want to talk to you about here in a few minutes, which I know was an incredible experience, but were there any other sets that you were involved with that stand out to you as special?
Yes. There was a profound experience I had on a movie called, ironically, Fearless, directed by Peter Weir. And it was so memorable and so powerful because Peter Weir became a teacher of how powerful it is when you are authentic, when you respect and interact and listen to your crew, when you bring in elements that unify a crew. For example, he was the first director I ever worked with who used music on the set. He put together at the time, a cassette tape, and he carried a boombox around with him. And this cassette tape had about a half dozen pieces of music that reflected different moods. And he would play this music during rehearsal. The actors would leave, would light the set up the shot. Actors would come back. He would play that music again softly in the background as the actors rehearsed one more time. And then he'd say, okay, go ahead and roll camera. And he would have his hand on the volume control. And he'd say to the actors, and he'd dial down the music, action. And in that moment, with the use of music, he had brought everybody into alignment, if you will, through the use of music. Actors, crew, me, and I had had the wonderful position of panning and tilting that camera with the actors' movements. And so this notion of being in sync with them was always important to me. It was a spiritual experience for me working on that film because of Peter Weir.
Wow, that's so awesome. And also like invoking emotion, I'm sure, with the music.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk to you about leadership and Garry Marshall's use of LSD.
Yes, yes. It stands for laughing, singing, and dancing. I don't know what else it could have stood for. He was a master of using laughter, singing, and dancing as a way of bringing unity to the set, accomplishing the same thing Peter Weir did. He was constantly playing tricks, just anything to keep us alive. One of his techniques, I did 2 movies with him, and on both films, at some point, 2 actors would show up on the set dressed as cops and arrest someone on the crew. And we camera operators would be alerted about 2 minutes in advance, and of course would be rolling. They would film it, which would be shown then at the wrap party. He had everybody on the crew at one point during production get to clap the slate. So they would be on film, and that would all be shown at the wrap party. On Thanksgiving Eve, we were on location in Baltimore, and an extra hour was added to the lunch so that we could stage a Thanksgiving Day parade. And each department was tasked with creating a float. That kind of stuff, just anything to keep us alive. I mean, this is a powerful form of leadership.
It's awesome. It sounds like these guys live life, and they're not just great directors. They're awesome, incredible people. I read that article about the parade too, and the team that won because they put the explosives in the bird or something rather.
Yes, it was the on-set special effects guys won the award when they put explosives in a chicken and blew it up during their portion of the parade. Yeah, they had more tools than the other department.
Right? I know, right? Yeah. What role does authenticity and vulnerability play in being successful?
Well, authenticity and vulnerability are go together. To be vulnerable is to show the world who you are, who you really are. When we do that, when we are vulnerable, we run the risk of having our deepest wounds triggered. And this is what puts most people off. This is what has, me included, this is what creates caution, is the possibility that my deepest wounds might be triggered. And so it takes great courage to be vulnerable. And I believe that people respond to that level of courage, whether they quite realize it or not.
I'm curious, when in your life did you realize the importance of this? Have you always been that kind of person that was, authentic with others, or is it something that you've learned?
I've always responded to it. I didn't quite understand it like I do now. It's only in the last decade that I've really come to understand what it was that I was responding to. As a child and a teenager, for example, I loved comedians because they told the truth. And they had the balls to stand up there and say what no one else would say. This is why I loved George Carlin from day one. He had the courage to get up and say things that no one else was saying, but I was seeing in my life, right? And, I've always been creative. I've always been an artist. And being an artist means risking putting out there your version of reality in whatever form you choose. And when you do that, it's possible some people will reject that, right? Which can then trigger one's deepest wounds. Certainly my deepest wound. One of my deepest wounds is unworthiness of being seen and heard. And we all have some variation on that. It's been my experience.
Well, I'd like to talk to you about your article that you published on your blog, How to Survive a Micromanager Without Doing Jail Time, and particularly part 2. Would you share this article's message with us?
When I work with my clients as a coach, I'll very often, I have a couple of different pairs of sunglasses that have different color lenses in them, and I'll have them put on these sunglasses with purple lenses, and I'll hold up a white piece of paper, say, what color is this? And they'll say, well, it looks purple through here, you know? And I said, well, this is an example of how we go through life. We all have perceptual filters. We all have our own. And things get challenging when I'm wearing the magenta sunglasses and my boss is wearing the yellow sunglasses, and we're both looking at a white piece of paper and calling it different colors. So sometimes we get into conflict with other people, and it's important to recognize that I may be half at fault here or 100% at fault here because I have my own perceptual filters. I see things my way through my history and through my feelings and through my thoughts. So I guess the message in that article is about being open to the possibility that that conflict you have with a micromanaging boss is actually an opportunity to learn something about yourself and perhaps walk away with a bigger picture view of yourself and how to go forward.
In this article, you wrote about if you're the only person having a problem with this boss, you need to look at yourself.
That's a good indicator. Yeah. Which reminds me of this guy, Ray Dalio, who wrote a book called Principles recently. He's the head of the most successful hedge fund in history and operates his company on a very transparent level. He's done a TED Talk, in fact, and he shows a clip from a meeting of the heads of that company sitting around a big U-shaped table. Everyone has a laptop or a tablet, and they're all running the same software, which is showing how everyone in the room in real time is rating everyone else. And it not only gives feedback to the person who's speaking in the moment, but it gives feedback to the people giving feedback. And you can see that, oh, I'm reacting negatively to this person, but I'm the outlier. So that must have something to do with me. There's not a consensus here, that this guy's wasting our time. Maybe I'm not paying attention.
I want to talk to you about music.
Yeah.
You're a songwriter.
Turns out, yeah, I discovered that at the age of 60. Mm-hmm.
What do you think turned that on, Paul?
I fell in love. That was one thing. And that was the big thing. That was a big part of it. And I had been taking, well, actually there were a couple of things came together. I had played guitar since the age of 12, but typically I played guitar in a room by myself. And if I sang, it was in a room by myself. In 2012, I managed to push two of my fingers into a table saw and crippled myself on the left hand for about 7 months. And one of the first thoughts I had as I did it was, wow, I'm not going to be playing guitar for a while. Maybe I should take those singing lessons that I've been threatening to take. So I did. I took voice lessons, which somehow opened the sluices on the songwriting in combination with falling in love, in combination with beginning my studies in spiritual psychology.
I love that. Are you the singer on your album?
Yes.
You're incredible, man. I can't believe you kept that voice from us for your whole life. Come on now.
God bless. Thank you.
To say I see you, I know it's taken some time to show I care.
I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. Let's talk about some of your music. Let's talk about
Sure.
I love your music. I love the melodies. I love the style. It's I don't know, what would you call that, Paul?
I'm not sure. I mean, all I can do is talk about my influences, I think, and I'm influenced by everyone from Frank Zappa to Paul Simon to Weather Report. the Beatles. These are my influences, you know. I guess it's kind of an R&B. I've never been good at characterizing my music with words.
Yeah, I don't know that you can. It's really unique, but it's awesome. It's really awesome. I love your music and your lyrics. I'm extremely in love with your lyrics. They're comical at times, like a naked man with a dustbuster. I don't know where you came up with that, but even in this song, you have a message. I'd like to read some of the lyrics.
Sure.
Don't ever let your thoughts get the best of your short time on Earth, unless you want your life to consist of a series of encounters with lists of heartless attorneys, convicts, and prom queens, and catered lunch with every loser you've met. Starts out really serious. Don't ever let your thoughts get the best of your short time here on Earth. It's really heavy, but then you lighten it with this comedy.
Of your short time on Earth, unless you want your life to consist of a series of encounters with lists of heartless attorneys, convicts and prom queens, then catered lunch with every loser you've met.
Have you always softened the seriousness in life with humor? Is that you?
Yeah. Like I say, I was very influenced by comedians as a child. I worshipped comedians. I worshipped Jerry Lewis, you know, because he could get away with being this insane thing. He got paid for it. I worshipped Jonathan Winters, who could do these rants that were bordering on psychedelic and just transported me. Zappa, who would combine in his lyrics and in his music irony and commentary and extraordinarily beautiful melodies all at the same time. Yeah, these people influenced me a lot.
I love that. Let's talk about another song of yours. The lyrics, a simple song. It's a simple song to sing, doesn't take remembering. Stop thinking, that's the start, then drop into your heart and love. Just love. It's easier than war, costs less, that's for sure. It makes things that are healthier for men. You're asking how I can love what I despise. This is the lyric that gets me. You're asking how I can love what I despise. Stop judging first. The doors will open then.
Yes, and love. It's easier than war. It costs less, that's for sure. Makes things that are healthier for men. You're asking how can I love what I despise. Stop judging first, the doors will open then. You'll be the child you were in love again. It's a simple song to sing, doesn't take remembering. Stop thinking, that's the start, then drop into your heart and love.
And a little bit later in the song you say, on the other side of fear, you will see that loving you really is loving me. And I always thought that judgment was hatred, but it's certainly ugly. But you say in this song that it's fear. Would you share your fear perspective concerning judgment with us?
Sure. One of the foundational realities that I've come to understand about life is that when I judge, I suffer. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When I judge, I am putting into context the entire world or whatever it is I'm talking about. I'm looking at it in terms of duality, black or white, right or wrong. That's what judgment is. It's the opposite of discernment, which we were talking about earlier, which is the ability to decide, is this working for me or is this not working for me? That's discernment. Judgment is attacking the basic value of something or someone. So when I judge, I experience suffering. I experience an ickiness. And of course, that is also experienced often by the people being judged, right? So how is this related to fear? Fear is a picture of the future that is bleak. It also is often based around judgment. When we become afraid, we often look for someone or something to blame. I think there's a lot of fear going around in this country right now. And there's a lot of scapegoating. Immigrants have always been a favorite scapegoat for people who are in fear about the future. And when we look at the spectrum of quality of life, there is on one end of the spectrum fear, and at the other love. Fear is a very powerful force. It's a force that's exploited by many people. It will be exploited in the upcoming presidential election, be used to motivate people to vote a certain way. And yet, ultimately, love is the most powerful force in the universe. And this is the work before us, to stay in loving, to not fold when fear comes up. And we all have fear. We all have this animal brain within us, trying to protect us, trying to keep us safe from the predators in the bushes. It's just it's not serving most of us in reality these days, unless we are able to step back and recognize fear that is unfounded, fear that's based on what I call mental fake news.
So what would you say, what's the cure, man? Like, we can only do what we can do, right? We can only be non-judgmental. We can only control ourselves. We can only love ourselves. What can we do about those that judge us and judge others? And what do we do about them?
It all, as you said, it all starts with us. One of the most powerful teaching tools is to be the change you want to see. And my experience with Peter Weir was just that. He profoundly affected me simply by being who he was and showing me, well, here's another way to direct a movie. If we think about the people who have influenced us, I think we'll recognize that the most impactful were those who had a certain something about them when they were just being themselves. So it starts there. In order to get to that place, you have to know yourself. So know thyself, I would suggest, is the first step.
Inner peace?
And I think that is certainly a benefit of knowing thyself, understanding what it is that triggers us, what our deep psychological wounds are. And for most of those were created before the age of 7. And how those wounds we are still carrying and influencing our choices and our behavior on a daily level. Something like 90% of our behavior, of the typical person's behavior, is on autopilot in a given day. We're really not thinking. We're not stepping back and looking at the choices we're making. It's all happening on autopilot. And that's being fueled by our subconscious. And that programming language of our subconscious was written before the age of 7. When we were very sensitive, but we weren't very wise. And we came to conclusions about life that we're still carrying with us. So unlearning things is a big part of evolving in consciousness for me. And then being as authentic as I can be in any given situation, seeing and recognizing other people on a level of, hey, I really see you in this moment. Whether it's the cashier at the grocery store, or the cop who's writing me a ticket, or the podcast host who called out of nowhere and struck up a conversation with me. My power nowadays is just showing up and being myself, enthusiastically, being vulnerable.
I love that. You talked about unlearning things. Some things are harder to unlearn than others, surely?
Yeah, sure.
Are they all dealt with the same way with this awareness that you spoke of?
We all have stories running in our subconscious. Some of them we're aware of, but we're all running stories that influence us, especially when our feelings get hurt. And when we do the work to understand, oh, wow, I created that story. You know, that time that Dad took me out in the garage and paddled my butt, I came to the conclusion, based on the circumstances, that I really can't express myself. It's dangerous. It's dangerous to be me. So I gotta really hold that back.
Wow, that's that sounds like you were set up for an uphill battle, because I mean, it's so important to be authentic and vulnerable, and you understand that now, but you learn from an early age not to be. Right.
You know, and I think each of us has our version of this, and it helps if we can look at life as a hero's journey. I mean, this is the work. Work is to go through life and experience challenges and conflict and upset, and hopefully recognize, okay, I'm really in some deep shit right now. What's the learning opportunity here? Is there something about myself I need to know based on the way I'm reacting and the way I'm feeling? And, you know, is this a pattern in my life? I mean, this is how life plays out. This is one of the beautiful things about spiritual psychology, because they look at these things. They suggest some scenarios for why life is like this. It turns out we're all on a mission to evolve toward more unconditionally loving people. And in order to do that, we have to love ourselves first. And in order to do that, we have to unlearn the stories that we're carrying that say, I'm not good enough, or I'm unworthy of being loved, or whatever one we're carrying, you know?
Are you carrying anything right now still?
Sure. Less and less. But yeah, I get triggered. I get triggered around thinking I need to be something to keep the other person happy or in a good mood. I'm somehow responsible for someone else's emotional state. I still work with that one. I still work with, oh my God, I can't sing in front of someone. You know, I'm not good enough. I can't create something and then put it out for people to look at. I'm not good enough. And if they criticize me, they'll be speaking the truth. They'll confirm that I'm not good enough. And then I'll die. You know?
Well, I've heard you sing, and you are certainly good enough to sing in front of other people, for sure. Absolutely. Come on now.
Bless you.
Overwhelming desire to care about other people and how they feel and make them happy. Is that all bad?
No, it's not. It's not. It's only unhealthy when it becomes the reason for living. It's only bad when it comes at the expense of loving yourself. So if I invest my self-worth in how people are reacting to me, I'm always going to be disappointed. I may get everybody on my side today, but tomorrow somebody's going to change their mind. And if my sense of self and my self-worth is tied to that, then I'm riding the tail of a tiger. I must learn to value myself, love myself, and really know when I'm alone and there's no one there to reflect it back to me, that I'm valuable. And again, when coming back to meditation, that's an opportunity to remember that. It's an opportunity to remember I was created by the same entity that created everything else. So how can I criticize myself? How can I criticize the higher power that created me? She's done a pretty damn good job with all the other stuff.
That's an awesome perspective. Is that what you would say to someone that suffered from I care too much what other people think?
Yes, that's one of the things. Yeah. This comes under the big umbrella of codependency, which is your sense of well-being is dependent upon someone else or something else. We can be codependent about the economy or whether or not the baseball team won the World Series, whether or not I got the raise.
When you recognize that someone has a problem, or they tell you that they have the problem, I care too much about what other people think. That's
yeah.
I'm guilty of that. That's why I asked you, is it all bad? Because I don't think it can be bad. It can be detrimental, but at the same time, I like that I care about other people and I care about other people's feelings that they care about. I think that's my strength. It can be a weakness too, but it's my strength too.
Right. No, and I'm with you. I think, no, you're very sensitive, empathetic. You're very keyed into where other people are, what they're going through. Again, it comes back to, do you base your value as a human being on how they're reacting? See, a person who is secure can be themselves and enjoy it when just being yourself is resonating with the people around you. But if somebody says, this is bullshit, if you're secure, you say, oh, okay, everybody has an opinion. Have a great day. If you're codependent, oh my God, it could ruin your day. You could have 50 people giving you applause, but it's that one schmuck in the back who's giving you the finger that has wrecked your day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. We spoke about that a couple of weeks ago when we talked on the phone, when we have someone that gives a bad comment, and our hearts are in the right place, and we're trying to empower and motivate, encourage, inspire other people. We're not doing anything. We're not doing the devil's work here. We're full of love and peace and helping other people. I mean, it's beautiful. And then we have that one person that wants to throw a stone at us, and that's the person that we latch on. That's the person that we hear. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's definitely something to be aware of. And
so this is the kind of wound that I was speaking of, that we all have variations of this wound. And one of the tools for coping with it that's used by many people is inner child work, inner bonding work, which is to kind of connect with the child that's still in you. And very often that child within us is the part of us that's dependent on how other people are reacting, and to play kind of a psychological game with this child where we show up as the adult and we say, hey, sweetheart, it's not your job to care about what other people think. I'll deal with the other people. Your job is just to be a kid, be creative, have fun and play, and share ideas with me. Help me with the creative stuff. I'll take care of the details. A lot of us as children got the message, hey, if you do something to upset me, there's something wrong with you. That's part of the unlearning. That's one version of the unlearning that can be very therapeutic and helpful, and was to me. It was a significant chunk of my work about 10 years ago.
Awesome. So your work as a soul-centered professional coach, have you worked with anyone that's not spiritual?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is that more difficult?
No, because I just substitute the word fate for higher power or God or the universe, We all share the experience of life. And whether we attribute what happens to a higher power or a God, or simply to the way that life tends to play out, there's a commonality that doesn't require spirituality. I mean, life consists of patterns. and I think all of us recognize these patterns on some deep level.
Awesome. You've done so much, Paul. You're an incredibly interesting guy, man. You've done so much with your life. What's next for you, man?
Good question. So this YouTube channel, the Abundant Channel, just happened in the last year. It was not planned. I created a guided meditation using the words of Joe Dispenza, who has an amazing following, wrote New York Times bestseller called You Are the Placebo. I put that meditation on YouTube, and in the course of a year acquired 10,000 followers. Many of them telling me my voice helped them. So I've continued to create, to write and record and put music on to a variety of guided meditations. I just finished recording 5 poems of Hafiz, and they are going to go on the Abundant Channel very soon, within a day or two. This week, I'm taking a weekend seminar in which I will write a keynote speech. I would like to be giving more live talks. The performer in me is excited about that. But every day, and again, in meditation, I will ask this question. Every day I will ask, what am I supposed to do today? How am I supposed to serve today? It's really come down to that. Asking that question, how can I help the planet? How can I help other human beings today? Is this path that really works? I'm experiencing a resurgence in income by following this path. So I'm kind of living what I'm preaching in the guided meditations when it comes to manifestation. I picked this title, The Abundance Channel, out of the air about 10 years ago and just stuck it on. I just kind of claimed it with nothing particular in mind. Just seemed like a good thing to think about. So I'm following directions, and these concepts of authenticity and creativity, vulnerability. These are 3 big words in my awareness these days, and how they come together and how they complement each other, and how life just blossoms and unfolds when we have awareness around these things.
I love that. You said you're following directions, and I couldn't agree with you more. I feel the exact same way about my journey, my life, the universe talking to me. Do you feel that directions from your higher power help you overcome fear?
Yes. The results do. The results help me overcome fear. The results of paying attention and responding provide evidence that the fear is unfounded.
That's an awesome answer. I love that. There are times that the fear is validated, and I think that gets mixed in there, and that's why fear is so real. Like, there are times that things don't work out.
Can you give me an example?
I mean, come on, you start a business and you fail. Mm-hmm. And you lose a lot of money. Maybe you lose a relationship over it. Maybe friends over it. You've put your heart and soul into this, and this business just doesn't do what you expected it to do. And it happens. Yeah. Not everybody, I'd say champions, really successful people have failed before they get back up and they try again. We all know that. People fail more than they succeed. And the people that are successful have failed their way to success. We all know this. But But there are times that, something like that happens, and then you're supposed to stand up and try again. And that's right up there with a bird watching its baby brother jump out of the nest and not fly. And now it's supposed to jump out of the nest. I mean, it's kind of like one of those moments where, fear is real. Fear is real. It's in our lives. Failure is real. And mixing that in there really complicates not having fear. I mean, the fear of failure is valid. It's valid. It's a valid fear.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned how failure, quote unquote, is an integral aspect of so many success stories. So the trick is to not judge what happens and to accept the possibility that, okay, I took one thing and I put it together with another thing, thinking that I would get a certain result. Okay, I didn't get that result. I did, however, get some feedback. Those two things don't go together at this point in time. Now, I can go to judgment and suffer, or I can be open to the possibility that is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And in fact, there's something far better in store if I just continue to pay attention and don't get lost in the judgment, /fear.
And having, being spiritual, having a higher power, and knowing that our higher power downloads directions into our lives. It happened to me. That eases that fear, because I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I know I'm on the right path. But what are some of the other things we can do to eliminate fear in our life, or and maybe not eliminate it, but diminish it? I don't know that it ever actually goes away.
Well, a big tool for me is just simply look at my life. I had numerous opportunities to self-immolate. There are times I should have died. I didn't. My life has played out remarkably well, in spite of my fear, in spite of my judgments, in spite of my pessimism. So there's ample evidence to suggest that having faith is a very valid choice. And if I can stay in that mindset, see, fear is crippling. Fear is coming up, again, from a survival part of our brain that is all business, that looks at the world in terms of dualities, good, bad, right, wrong. There are no grays. It's all black or white in the world of fear. Real creative, earth-changing, life-changing stuff comes from the palette of grays and sensitivity to the voice of higher power and the universe and the opportunities that come forward in terms of some person or some event. And if we're awake enough, if we're not drowning in our own thoughts, if we're not distracted by our own self-generated fear, we recognize a possible opportunity here.
Recognizing that's a part of it too, right? I mean, because there's so many times, not just recognizing fear, but recognizing what it is that we're supposed to be doing, what it is that we're being directed to do, what our directions are. There's been so many times in my life that I've come up and had an idea that I didn't act on it. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about taking action in our lives.
Yeah.
Without action, no results, right?
Yeah. It's absolutely powerful. The metaphor I heard recently was it's much easier to steer a car when it's rolling than when it's sitting still. It's much harder to turn the steering wheel. As soon as you begin to roll, as soon as you take action, it just all gets easier. My life at this point is, okay, make a choice, get the feedback from what that choice created, make another choice, and do it without judgment. The judgment just pulls me down, distracts me. It makes me less efficient, less sensitive, less aware, less creative.
So, what do you say to someone that I want to start a business, or I have this idea, or that's having a problem with taking action? This is the person that has to read another book or has to take another class, or they never know enough. They never know it all. They don't know all the steps. They haven't figured it all out yet. So they don't start. How do you prod them?
Well, we talk about, okay, well, what are the consequences of taking a step? Well, it might not work. Okay. What are the consequences of it not working? And then very often there are details, which may be that there are consequences that are valid or not. I mean, it's stupid to risk something that's going to wipe out your bank account. That's not a wise call. But if that's not going to happen and it doesn't work, well, then what is it? Well, lots of times we end up carving down to, okay, that wound that says I'm unworthy is going to get triggered, and I'm going to feel like crap again. I'm going to feel like I did that day when I was 5 years old, and that incident happened with my father, in which he said, "You'll never amount to anything," and it just cut me to the quick. That's what I'm afraid of happening, is having that feeling again.
So you're really just going right back to the root.
It very often is what happens in my work with clients. Yeah, let's get to the heart of the story. Whose voice is that telling you it's not going to work because you're a piece of shit? Very often it's one of our caregivers growing up, or that teacher in high school. I'm testing the limits nowadays. I'm taking dancing lessons, learning West Coast swing with my wife, and I am actively working to unlearn what happened to me at the age of 11 when I was at a party with other kids and teenagers, and somebody put a record on, and I closed my eyes and started moving my ass and shaking my body, and I was entranced. And I opened my eyes, and there, about 10 feet away, were these two really attractive teenage girls, just a couple of years older than me, who were laughing at me. And that's the last time I danced. And I am testing that now. And the first couple of times, it was like I was going to my execution, showing up for the dance lesson.
I think it's so awesome that, even just with dancing, you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. That those two girls were laughing because they thought you were cute. It wasn't because they were laughing at you. You know that, right? Maybe,
and it really, whatever their reasons were, and that may well have been it had nothing to do with my value as a person, as a human being. I was good enough then. I'm good enough now. And there are plenty of guys who get on dance floors who are far more awkward than I. I'm actually very graceful, turns out. But there's some awkward motherfucker dancers out there who are completely unafraid. Right? And the interesting thing is, they're kind of attractive to many people, simply because they're not afraid. They're authentic. They're just doing their thing. See, but we're drawn to people like that. This is why we go see musicians who are amazing, and this is why we go see actors who bare their souls on the screen. They're being vulnerable for us. They're giving us hope. They're inspiring us. This is why we go see Chris Rock. Due to saying shit that I wanted to say and could never. Right? We love that.
I do. I love it. I love it. And there's not anymore. I'm 42 now, so I've kind of grown. But there was a time that, I might have loved it. I might have been intrigued by that person, doing something that was different and not caring about what other people did. And there was a group of people, and I'd have been in the group laughing, and not laughing because, what other people saw us laughing, like we're laughing at them. No, we're not really laughing at them. We're laughing as like a safety mechanism so that nobody else thinks that we think it's cool when we really think it's cool. Isn't that weird?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I also would add, I think when we laugh at comedy, we're reacting to truth. We're getting a dose of truth. And for some reason, as human beings, we laugh in response.
I love it. Paul, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, ditto. I've enjoyed this.
Pleasure getting to know you and to learn all about you and learn from you and to talk to you, not just today on the interview, but, when we spoke on the phone at great length. And just thank you for taking the time out of your day to be with us today. And thank you for coming into my life.
God bless you. And I got as much out of it as you did. So there, take that. This is one of the great things about connecting with people on this level, where we can just speak our truth and not be judged, right? Because I think that's what you and I have done, is that higher power, whatever the universe thing is, God, whatever it is, seems to show up. It's like everything elevates. So if we can just continue to show up in life with other people on this level, fear doesn't have a chance. And all kinds of amazing things can get done when we come together. But I think you were right. Fear is an issue globally these days. And see, this gets back to the irony of this most wonderful of experiences I had in my film career, which was on a movie called Fearless.
So cool.
Yeah, it is.
Where can we find you online?
PaulBabin.com.
Awesome. And your YouTube channel, how can we find that?
It's called The Abundance Channel. Awesome.
Paul, I always end the show with a final question that I ask all my guests, and here it is. If today was your last day on Earth, and you could leave here being remembered for one thing, just one thing, what would that one thing be?
I'd like to be remembered for courage, my courage. And courage is an interesting word because it has the Latin root core in it, which means heart. And I'd like to be remembered as someone who was willing to expose his heart and to share it and to use it to leave the planet better than when he arrived.
What are you doing to ensure that legacy?
Taking dancing lessons and and asking every day, just staying in touch with that place in the universe that communicates to me in its most subtle ways. Continue to ask the question, how can I serve today? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? Those three questions tend to open really interesting doors. And by the way, when you first asked the question, you couched it in the language of this was your last day. Wow, that hurt. Boy, that went right to my heart. I thought, hell no. I have so much more to do. I've got stuff to do. I'm not sure what it is, but I've got stuff to do. I'm so not ready to go. But I will if I have to.